If you're looking to build a tanky build in Titan Quest 2 that can deal massive AoE damage, look no further than this build. It is called
Chains of Doom.
Kind of a dramatic name, but it's true. You whip out your chains to pull all enemies towards you in a wide angle. Then you got them at point blank range. The next step is to explode your own armor in their face and follow up with a fissure. Then repeat this cycle of doom. Since your gimmick is pulling enemies in, we got some support skills that damage enemies that are close to us. But more on that later. First, we do as usual the pros and cons. For the pros, we got a high area of effect damage, which is strong against mobs and hero monsters. Your defense is extremely good, and you are not afraid to die at any point. For the cons, we got the mobility. There are almost no movement abilities, and also the kill speed for bosses is not the highest. It is still decent though. The Chains of Doom build is the Devastator class, a combination of Forge and Earth Mastery. We deal mostly strike damage and also some fire and burn damage. Those damage types get scaled by Earth Mastery. Forge does not have much to offer for non-summoner builds. On the one hand, almost every passive ability of Forge is unusable. The active abilities of the Mastery, on the other hand, are very nice.
Impressive. Very nice.
Starting with the ability that the build is centered around, Chains. Tanky might builds often struggle with bigger mob sizes, depending on the build. Not this one though, because you pull all the fodder towards you instead of running to each monster individually to clap it to death. Chains is a cute tier 2 spell of Forge Mastery. Without modifiers, you pull all non-boss enemies towards you and deal physical damage in the process. With the modifier Additional Chains, you got a 30-degree wider angle, which helps you swoop in most mobs in front of you. Chains has 1 point in Additional Chains, that is enough. Really important is the modifier Cooldown Charge, so that you can spam the ability. Prioritize cooldown charge, then Additional Chains. You also want to jam the rest of your points in Thunder. That one increases the damage and reduces the enemy's armor for follow-up attacks. And that is exactly what the build does. After reeling a whole bunch of mobs in, we follow up with another banger skill called Armor Eruption. The modifier called Vulnerable on Hit increases all incoming damage by 20%, which is exactly what this combo build needs. A huge part of the skill is the modifier Cooldown Refresh, because with each active spell that we use, the cooldown of Armor Eruption gets reduced. That way we are able to spam this skill all the time. It doesn't cost anything, so prioritize Cooldown Refresh during leveling. Then skill Vulnerable, then the rest. You also need modifiers to enhance the spell area. You should get 2 points at least to hit everything effectively. 2 points in Elemental Infusion to deal some fire damage, because mixing up the damage is useful. Returning projectiles is a neat way to deal 30% more damage with the skill. It's a good thing Armor Eruption doesn't cost anything, because our next centerpiece of this build is a good way to spend some energy. Fissure is a neat spell of Earth's tier 1 skills. It deals a huge amount of strike damage. We max out both modifiers, Additional Fissures and Lava Fissures. That way we slam the ground, crack it open to create 3 fissures that deal massive strike, fire and sometimes burn damage. Top the modifiers off with 3 points in enhanced damage. Now that we got our main combo spells taken care of, let's look at our support skills. We grab and pull our friends towards us, so it seems reasonable to use some skills that deal damage around ourselves. One of those is Forge Call, which creates floating orbs around you that damage enemies on impact. Skill the modifier Additional Orbs 2 times to have more orbs surrounding you. Don't skill up to level 3 because the orbs are further apart from you and don't hit the enemies at all that are at point blank range. 1 point in weaponized orbs is a good damage boost. Use the rest of the points on heat up. That one deals additional fire damage. It's always good to diversify your damage a little, especially if we consider that we got loads of fire damage scalers in Earth Mastery. Also use the modifier Heavy Impact. This one stuns the enemies and makes the orbs go faster. Another good support spell for dealing some AoE damage is Ring of Flame. We use that as a spell to run faster on areas where we explore the world and want to cover some ground fast. In combat, this spell is also very handy, because with the modifier Weakening Heat, we reduce the enemy's resistances and armor by up to 18% after 3 seconds of standing in the ring. The ability itself also deals some fire damage. Another active spell that we need to prioritize is Earth Enchantment. Max out Fire Imbuement to maximize our physical and fire damage, and also 1 point in Enhanced Armor to boost our armor value. That is good for defense, but also for one of our important spells, Armor Eruption. The damage of it scales with armor, so we want to increase our armor as much as possible, with flat bonuses and percentile bonuses. Forge has an aura all the way at tier 4. This one boosts our armor significantly. Jam 3 points in enhanced armor and 1 point in conservation, to preserve some mana in order to spam fissures. Flame Volley is also a cool passive spell. Skill Orbit so that it fires automatically, and 2 points in enhanced ailment. Why the ailment, you ask? Because of the best thing Earth Mastery has against mobs, which is the passive skill Combustion. Whenever a burning enemy dies, he has a chance to explode, damaging his surrounding friends. Good thing they are all bunched up thanks to being drawn towards us by the chains. Use the feats Chance and Damage. Note that the Lava Fissure modifier deals fire damage that also has a 40% ailment chance. We use that so that Combustion triggers a lot. It helps with our kill speed if some mobs blow up via combustion in an area of effect. Earth Attunement is our best passive damage scaler. Use the feats Area and Spell because all our damaging skills are classified as that. Earth Wielder is also a cute way to increase the spell damage a little, but more importantly give some crit chance. Also use the tier 4 passive Cremation to set them on fire so combustion can blow them up. Skill it up a little and use the feat Chance. Earth Barrier also increases the armor a little. Use the feats Armor and Barrier Decay Threshold. This one transforms 10% of your energy into more time that your barrier lasts. This is a build of mine where I actually put active skills in the barrier. Put 1 point in Guard so that you can put the barrier up at almost every fight. Use it right after you reeled the mobs in with chains. Guard makes you use the barrier more often, but it doesn't last long. Also put 1 point in Reflecting Guard so that enemies take damage when they hit you. You also need to put 2 active points in the dodge, because without it the dodge distance is pitifully short. This goes for every single build that you play. Put at least 2 points in distance. The passives of Forge Mastery are all summoner skills, so this build does not have many points to spend here. Put 5 points in the tier 1 Sturdy Armor in order to boost our armor for Armor Eruption. The only other usable passive for this build is Reinforced Weaponry, which we use to increase our physical damage, which is at least 70% of the damage that we deal. Earth has another passive damage scaler on tier 4, Concussive Force. Our main purpose is to increase the physical damage, but it also prolongs the stun duration and also increases the damage that you deal on stunned enemies. All our physical damage from various sources has a good stagger stun chance now. Chains also stuns for a brief period, and Forge Call also stuns an enemy that is hit by 6 orbs. All this stunning is perfect for one specific item, the epic sword Bone Saw, that gives you an additional crit chance when dealing damage to stunned enemies. We are a combo build that uses the skills in rapid succession. Many of our skills stun, and follow-up skills have a good chance to crit. We deal a lot of damage to stronger mobs like Ichthyan leaders too, but what about boss fights? You are not threatened by any boss in the slightest. You have such high armor and resistances due to the might armor and your armor buffs, not to mention your big health pool, that you do not have to watch the boss and his goofery with his attacks at all. You just have to watch your skills and use them as soon as they are available. It all cycles around armor eruption, because this one's cooldown gets reduced by other active spells. For bosses, this build basically stands still and becomes a piano build, where you whittle down at the boss by casting one ability after the other. You basically do not look at the boss at all, just piano your skills and use armor eruption as often as possible. Chains is also good for bosses as well. It reduces the armor and deals decent damage, costs no energy, and serves as a cooldown reduction for armor eruption. The build is might based, but I recommend that you put your attribute points 50-50 into might and vigor. You just need might in order to be able to equip the hottest gear. Some nice might armor with huge armor values and good resistances. The rest goes into vigor, where it increases your health and secondary resistances. All your armor pieces have the inherent stat of thermic and natural resistances. It rolls from 3 to 6%. You also go for some poison res on your armor and some basic resistances and flat armor. Get some poison res and you are unkillable. The shield that works best is Aegis of Laconia. This one gives a huge percentile increase to your armor, which is insane for armor eruption and your defense. With all of that, the build is an awesome tank, not threatened by anything. Your only concern is to line up enemies nicely so that you can maximize the damage by blowing them up all together. The skills are super strong and the build is not dependent on specific items. Although the epic shield is pretty good, that gives you 21% armor increase. You don't need the sword and shield that I am using. You can also go for some nice one-handed weapon that increases your crit chance, damage and % strike damage. You can get a good rare shield with the relic Rigid Carapace on it. Put a Rigid Carapace also on your torso armor to further increase your armor. I also recommend that you farm for a Hermes sandal to put on your boots in order to run 10% faster. Another relic piece that I recommend is Turtle Shell. You can put that on your necklace to increase your armor, but that thing is impossible to farm at the point of this video. Boar Hide is easy to farm and gives additional armor. Put that on your arms. If you farmed for a Will of Ajax, this build is a good way to use it on your helmet, because it gives a 9% armor increase. We already talked about the sword and shield briefly, but let's take a look at the items in detail. Bonesaw is a good sword that I recommend for the build. It synergizes well with the mini stuns that this build does. The second unique stat is what makes this weapon powerful here. A 20% increased crit chance against stunned enemies. You also get a nice big crit chance increase and some vigor. I used Bonesaw for most of the game, but later I found a nice one-handed weapon that just gives some nice percentile scalar on strike damage. This weapon is a lot stronger than Bonesaw, so I recommend you look for a weapon with the prefix crushing and the suffix of carnage. If you have some area damage and crit chance on there, it would be the optimal item. Let's take a look at the shield. Aegis of Laconia has some okay stats. 3 barriers are always nice, so that we can tank any damage if we spam the barrier on every fight. The 21% increased armor value gives armor eruption a big boost and increases the overall armor value. Torso armor needs some vigor and you can go for armor or resistances. You need crit chance on your shoulders and some other random stats. Basically everything on here is good. For the helmet you need high energy regeneration. For arms go for strike damage. Boots go for movement speed obviously. And I always like the extra stat of movement speed cooldown. Extra armor usually is useless as a stat on might armor, but for this build it is actually good. On rings you want spell damage and crit chance. Other good stats are physical damage and cooldown rate. On the amulet you want health regen and cooldown rate. Energy potions need the ailment bonus, and for health just go for the biggest regen value. Let's talk about the intended playstyle of this build. Always keep your orbs up. They have a good source of extra damage. The combo is no secret by now, but let's have a look at it in some more detail. You position yourself with the dodge in an area where you can maximize the amount of enemies that you can sweep in with your chains. You immediately use armor eruption to cast vulnerable on the enemies. Then use fissure in a way that damages most mobs. Cast ring of flame and forge call. Armor eruption should be cooled down by now, so you repeat the combo until nothing is alive. For bosses, just stand there and use the combo, but you also spam chains in between the armor eruption casts. This is also an active spell that reduces the cooldown of it, so spam chain as well as the other spells. It really helps to use Ring of Flame against bosses because of the weaken effect. During leveling, I recommend that you level up your combo spells gradually. Skill Armor Eruption, Forge Call and Fissure on each level up, one skill at a time. I liked that more than tunneling all your points in one spell and have the other combo spells suck. Use your barrier frequently, right before you expect some incoming damage. For mobs, this is right after you use chains and pulled all monsters towards you. For bosses, you use barrier obviously before huge swings. Once you maxed out your build, you are a true indestructible tank. You occasionally chuck a health potion at bosses, but your life is actually never threatened. This build finds a good middle ground between offense and defense. It's a tank build with decent AoE damage and a nice crowd control. I can't wait to play that build in multiplayer as well. So how do you find guys to play multiplayer with? You can join my new Discord channel and find like-minded individuals. Find multiplayer games, trade items and have discussions. The link is in the description. Thanks for watching and see you next time, Titan Slayers.